discussions with the crowd, with the passerbys, with the people who were passing by us. I want to remind you all, my friends, that we are always open to questions. We're always open to people who want to say a couple of words, to ask something, to participate, or perhaps to join us and add their voice to ours. It is one of the main values of this country, freedom of expression. And it's very important that we all practice it together. The main reason for that is that we shatter the echo chambers before they form up. We must not allow people to exist in these small-minded echo chambers. We must not allow that, because that leads to conspiracy theories, that leads to misinformation, that leads to stupidity. That leads to some of the people who have been coming here to argue with us. I remember that individual in particular, the one who came last time. You know, fortunately he was relatively polite, although by the end he started getting a little bit hectic. He started acting very ungratefully, because no other rally is going to allow the passerbys to directly participate with the people who are doing the rally. And you know what the man said when I was asking him, oh, do you want to ask a question? He started demanding that I just give him the microphone and that he starts talking instead. Like, what kind of garbage is that, my friend? Seriously. Have you ever seen a rally where people are doing speeches and then just simply some random wasteman shows up and he says, oh, you know, give me the microphone. And then the microphone is given to him and he starts doing his own thing. Like filibustering the whole rally. That would be the day. Not. But we do something different here. We ask people questions. And we ask them to ask us a question. And we will answer it. We always answer these questions. The problem is, my friends, when there is no decorum. The problem is when there is no knowledge of this topic. And people speak with a lot of conviction without having any actual knowledge. That is the big problem. When somebody speaks with a lot of conviction about something, and then you ask him a simple question, and he completely collapses into himself, you can know for sure that that person has no idea what they're talking about. They're just a snake oil salesman. Somebody who sells something they can't back up, something they would never buy. You know, sometimes people say, put your money where your mouth is. That's a very good saying. We could apply it to this situation, my friends. If the people of the West claim to be on the side of freedom, if they claim to be on the side of peace, they should support the people who have sacrificed so much for freedom and for peace. And no other people on earth is sacrificing as much as Ukraine right now for those values, for the future of Ukraine and of humanity, for the survival of the Ukrainian people, for peace in Europe. Do those terms mean nothing to your average Joe, to your average person? They must mean something, my friends. Because if they mean nothing truly, then humanity might be doomed. Because if there are no values, if there is no purpose, then we are merely a bag floating in the wind. Wherever the wind takes us, wherever fate takes us, we need to shape fate ourselves with our own hands. Thank you very much. Thank you. We need to do it ourselves, my friends. We need to take initiative in things. If we know something, we need to speak about it. If we are curious about something, we need to ask a question. And that question will be answered. We have always invited, very politely, our opposition to a civilized debate with us. But what do we see? What do we truly see when our opposition opens its mouth? We see parroting of Russian propaganda. We see uninformed, emotion-based opinions. We see insults. And when all of that goes down, they simply start ignoring us, like the Stop the War Coalition. That's what they did. You know, we came there to speak to them. We came there asking them a simple question. Why do you stand against Ukraine in NATO? Very simple, straightforward. They started deviating it to other causes, to other things. Oh, you know, we're not here about Ukraine, we're here about this war, and this situation in this country and that country. And yet, on the text, on the program they had for that day, it was written very clearly that they were going to discuss Ukraine's desire to join NATO. And as they said before, they're against it. But why? Why are people so uninformed nowadays? Why do people stand against joining NATO? Why do people stand against NATO? NATO is a good organization. NATO is the only alliance that prevents terrorist regimes like Russia from moving further, from attacking more countries. Why do people think that Finland and Sweden immediately scrapped all brands of neutrality and chased after NATO, begged NATO to be part of it? Erdogan started making demands for the Finnish and Swedes to give up some PKK, some Kurdish individuals who support a separation of the Kurdish people from Turkey. Erdogan started demanding that, and you know what? They gave Erdogan what he wanted. That is how much Finland and Sweden were desperate to join NATO. Do these people who say, oh, stop NATO, stop the war, no NATO, no to war, do the people who say this truly not think with their heads at all? What are they thinking with? My friends, we need to see reality as it is. The reality is, NATO is the only deterrent against Russia, the only foolproof deterrent, the only certain deterrent. It's unbelievably precious right now. My friends, the UK has very unfortunately left the EU. Now we know that some people, many people, still support that decision. But personally, I do not support it, my friends. I don't think it was a good decision. I don't think it worked in the favor of this country. This country had special treatment in the EU. This is what many people don't know. There were some special rules that only applied to the United Kingdom. For example, it never had to adopt the euro, although most European Union countries did. My friends, it was a good deal, but that deal was scrapped. What now? Should we join the EU again? Perhaps. But will they give the United Kingdom as good of a deal as the United Kingdom had before? Before they did the stupidity that was called Brexit. My friends, NATO is even more important than the EU. Sure, the United Kingdom might have left the EU, but it must never even consider leaving NATO, because NATO is the main thing that provides its security. We invite any person who might have a differing opinion to us to speak up and ask us a question, or any person who would like to say something in our support. That is our view. That is our approach to our opposition and to the passerbys who support us. Because, my friends, to speak means to take initiative. To speak means to live in a democracy and to make use of those rights that that democracy gives us, gives everyone who lives in it. If we do not speak, if we do not participate in democracy, then what's the difference between living in a democracy or in autocracy like Russia or North Korea? We must speak, we must participate, we must interact, and we must not be afraid of these interactions. I've heard sometimes people ask us, oh, you know, what do you hope to achieve? Why do you do this? Why do you stand here? Why do you argue with your opposition? It's not arguing, my friends. It's a debate. And it's meant to make sure that people learn, that people see whose opinions are better, whose opinions are worse. Now, not everything can be sorted with a debate, obviously. Many times we have spoken to individuals who are neck deep in conspiracy theories. Individuals who believe the earth is flat. Individuals who believe that there are Nazi Zionist reptilians from Mars ruling Ukraine. I did make this one up. However, we heard stories that were no less ridiculous than this one. And in the face of all of that, my friends, our message remains the same. We encourage people to unity and order. and to cherish the democracy they have so that it is not lost like it was lost in Russia before they even got a good taste of it. There was hope. There was a possibility for Russia to go in another route. And this is what sometimes these fools misrepresent. They say, oh, you know, Russia wanted to be part of NATO, but it was not allowed by the evil West. Well, of course it was not allowed by the West. Russia wanted to keep its kleptocracy, to keep its country-sized criminal syndicate, its corrupt leaders in charge, and to join NATO with all of that. How is that going to work? I mean, can North Korea simply join NATO? Of course not. Look at how their country functions. They are the antithesis to everything NATO stands for. What NATO asked for was for Russia to change their ways, and then sure, there could be a discussion. There was a discussion with Ukraine and Georgia to join NATO. And in that regard, I believe that NATO can be criticized to a certain extent, because they did not try hard at all to help Ukraine and Georgia join them. They did not try hard at all, and now we have what we have. The Russian terrorist regime felt empowered. The Russian terrorist regime felt emboldened to attack because they thought they could fully get away with it all. Well, my friends, here we are, here we stand once again. After about 11 years since the beginning of the actual war, which began, as people should know, with the invasion of Crimea, with the annexation of Crimea, and with the destabilization of the Donbass. That is when the war truly began. This was just an escalation. And we have to know that, my friends. We have to remember that. We have to remember always that the Russian terrorist regime will never stop until it is stopped. It will never negotiate until it is forced to do as such, until it is forced to abdicate from some things. Because without that, they will never give up on anything. They will always demand everything, and they will never accept any compromise. That is how a criminal thinks. He does not exchange money for goods. He simply takes it all and demands that more will be given to him. All together, we will win.
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 More sanctions on Russia.
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 Seize Russian assets.
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 No trade with Russia.
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 World, wake up.
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 Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Now, my friends, we're going to have a short musical break. Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам.
Yeah, I got perspective here, no problem. Україна.
Понад усе.
Україна.
Понад усе.
Україна.
Понад усе.
Героям України тричі.
Слава, слава, слава.
Now, my friends, once again, we invite the people who might want to ask a question or participate to do that, because the last few interactions we've had were quite productive, I'd say. Although sometimes we get more informed people, sometimes we get less informed people. But at the end of the day, the important thing is to discuss the popular beliefs, the popular thoughts that people have. To say whether or not they're good or not. To try to come up with better views of the world, better views on how to end this war for good. Not for a day, a week, a month, or a year, but forever. And of course, we've said this many times before. The best, most certain, most absolute way to end this war is to stop the Russian terrorist regime for good. However, of course, it seems like that is not going to happen yet. Today, my friends, I'd like to discuss a little topic that doesn't get spoken about very often. I'd like to discuss the different Ukraines inside of Russia. And I'm not talking about Crimea, Donbass, or the regions that Russia has occupied. I'm talking about regions where there's a huge Ukrainian community, and there has been before this war started. And the Russian terrorist regime did everything in their power to try to Russify those regions as much as humanly possible. The first one is known as Malay Litvы, or Raspberry Ukraine. This is a region south of Rostov-na-Don, or rather not Rostov-na-Don, I apologize, of basically a south area, south of the Azov Sea, where it used to be Cherkasy. Now, those people who know something about the Russian terrorist regime have heard about the Cherkasyan genocide, where more than 1 million people have been exterminated by the Russian Empire. And that area was repopulated by Russians and to an extent by Ukrainians. Because of course, the Russians were just big lovers of forcefully relocating people to split them apart from their roots, from their people. That's one of the reasons why there were so many Ukrainians there. Another area is Zolty Ukraine, Yellow Ukraine. That area is near the Volga River. Now, the Volga and the Don River, they used to be around one of the biggest communities of Cossacks in the world. Why is that, you might ask? Because a lot of Cossacks moved there from Ukraine. Some of them were forcefully moved there by the Russian Empire when they took over the Zaporizhian Sea. It is not what many people know, but there is a huge Ukrainian community there. The third Ukraine inside of Russia is Grey Ukraine, Sea Ukraine. Now this one we don't know much about, but one of the main things we know about it is that a lot of the people, a lot of the prisoners that the Russian terrorist regime, back then the Soviet terrorist regime, had captured in Ukraine were sent there to die, were sent there to the gulags, were sent there to build up that region. Some of them survived, and a lot of them encompass that community. They are part of that community now. Lastly, there is Green Ukraine, Zelen Ukraine. This is the one that people usually know the most about. This one is the furthest one by far. It's all the way near Vladivostok, encompassing also Vladivostok. In Vladivostok, there's a big Ukrainian minority. But the region itself was at some point majority Ukrainians. That's right. The Russians have relocated a huge amount of Ukrainian population to forcefully go there. My friends, it's important for all of us to know this. That in the future, those people will not have to live under the Russian yoke any longer. Of all things, the Russian terrorist regime was blaming Ukraine of mistreating the Russian minority, when at the same time, they have had a long process of Russification against the biggest ethnic minority in Russia.
Калининградскую
Ukrainians.
область, она никогда не
That's
была
right.
русской.
There are millions of Ukrainians in Russia.
Всех понесло, знаешь.
Many of them are the children that were stolen from Ukraine during this war. The children that the Russian terrorist regime
Сюда
plans to
жили
use as cannon
смешанные
fodder
там
in
немцы,
their
поляки,
future wars.
литовцы.
The children
Русы до
that are
этого
being
были.
brainwashed
Сколько
and
он
taught
российский был?
how to use
80 лет?
Kalashnikov
Меньше?
before they had their
Их
time to
начало там
be
клинить,
children,
они там
before they
опять
had their
добавки
time
за
to
2
play with
дня.
their friends and enjoy childhood. What every child should have. But no, in Russia, they are bred for war. And only for war. To fight for the corrupt interests of the leaders of the Russian terrorist regime. My friend, always remember this above all. There are many Ukrainians in Russia, and they will be liberated from the Russian yoke one
А у
day.
этого 30 человек держите, да?
One day soon. This is something we must remember. That is why we welcome everyone at our rallies, my friends, independently of where they come from, independently of their ethnicity, independently of their upbringing. The only thing we ask for is for people
Да.
to engage in the discussion.
А это,
In
а
an
ночью
open
они спят?
discussion.
Или тоже
If they agree with us, then let them add their voice to ours and speak together for this great cause. If they disagree with us, let them engage in a productive debate. Let them tell us what kind of solutions they think of for this war.
к Австралии.
We invite everyone to do as such at this very moment. Anytime that people want to ask us or to tell us what is their solution to this war. And we love hearing those little theories. One of my personal favorites is the simple one. Oh, just give peace a chance. Just negotiate a peace deal. And
И у них
negotiate
ко всем есть
settlement with
претензии,
Russia.
но что-то к
This
Австралии я
is
еще
the
не
funny one.
слышал.
People tell us this one as if they just discovered gunpowder. As if they just found the route to America.
20-30, так?
It's very interesting. How many times has Ukraine signed peace treaties, peace deals, and all kinds of agreements with Russia? How many times?
Та ти що?
Countless.
Та взяв би
And we
на
can
30
speak
людей.
about some of them. Like for example the Kaliningrad agreements, both of which were betrayed by Russia. Like for example the Budapest Memorandum, in which Ukraine received assurances
30
that
тисяч.
Russia would always respect Ukraine's sovereignty. And what happened
А и
with all
этот
of that,
голубь
my friends?
с карманами, который бородатый ходит толстый.
That agreement only lasted as long as the Ukrainians agreed to do everything that the Russians demanded them to do.
Ну знаешь,
That
этот,
is not
у
sovereign.
него все тело в этих карманах.
Sometimes we hear this idiotic point. Oh, but you know, of course Russia reacted. Of course, NATO was at their doorstep. They
Кто
can't know
говорит,
how
что в этом
Ukraine
году
could do it.
СССР возвратится, типа.
Well, perhaps Russia should not have signed treaties with Ukraine that show that
Главное, они говорят, это все на
promises to
серьезном
respect
таком
Ukrainian
лицом,
sovereignty.
серьезном.
But of course, who would be there to question it? Of course, Russia does not understand the meaning of sovereignty. For them, the sovereignty of other countries means that they get the freedom to choose exactly what Russia demands them to do. Until, of course, they stop doing what Russia demands them to do. Then they are called Nazis, fascists, and worse. That, my friend, is the true face of the Russian terrorist regime. Very easy to debunk points. And yet, so many people don't bother to look this up. They don't bother to ask some questions. They don't bother to actually look for it themselves. They just hear a whiff coming to them through Russian propaganda. Oh, you know, there should be peace. Ukraine should give up its land. People are dying, you know. Yeah, and who's killing them? Who started killing these people? The Russian terrorist regime. So how do you stop this war? By stopping aid to Ukraine, that is a country that's defending itself against annihilation. Or by stopping the aggressor, the Russian terrorist
А
regime.
имена кто им выбирает?
The biggest threat to this country, geopolitical enemy, number one of this country, that what every person in this country should know. It is not Germany, France or the
На меня
Netherlands.
попало.
It is not Ireland or Scotland or Spain or Portugal. It is Russia. It is the number one enemy of this country. It has always been that way ever since the Cold War. And it will always be this way.
Сколько
The
сейчас?
Russian
Минус
mentality
один есть?
is the very antithesis to British values.
Напиши.
It's very
Чтобы люди не
antithesis
мучались.
of religious tolerance.
0.
The antithesis of freedom of expression, of mutual respect.
И сколько сейчас? 6, где-то 19:00, да?
In Russia, it's might makes right, one value. It's very simple. Whatever their government says, the people obey or the people die. That is how Russia is ruled. That is not something we can compare to the free world. And this, my friends, this is one of the points that kind of annoys me when people say it. When we start talking about the problems with Russia, they start telling us, oh, but you know, there's corruption in the West, there's corruption in America, in the United Kingdom. My friends, can we really compare the level of endemic corruption in Russia to the localized corruption in this country? In this country, there are checks and balances to the power of the rulers, whether it be the prime minister or the monarch. They all have checks and balances. That is a maturity
Если хочешь поотвечать, можешь
has
поотвечать.
achieved throughout millennia of its history.
Здесь
That
радио.
is a maturity that the Russian terrorist regime never had,
Не знаю.
and perhaps never will have.
Смотри на них.
But we should hope for better, and we should act to achieve that better future. We should make sure that the Russian terrorist regime does not have what it takes to attack other countries. We need to look at the communities in Russia that need to be liberated from their terrorist regime. We need to look at the communities around the world that have been invaded and oppressed by the Russian terrorist regime's military. We need to look to our own to make sure that they do not attack us, to make sure they do not attack this country, to make sure they do not attack the free world. That, my friend,
Себе.
is our warning to the world.
О май гад.
Do not trust Russia. Do not follow their footsteps. Do not allow them to act as they please.
Вот что он видит
Stop them
нацистского
before
здесь?
they become more
Есть
powerful.
какие-то нацистские
And then,
знаки.
and only then there will be peace. And then
И все.
we will have a better world.
Ни одна циская.
All together, we will win.
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 Russia is a terrorist state.
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 Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 Tribunal for Russian war criminals.
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 Help Ukraine protect peace.
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 So, my friends, I think it's important to talk about what we see in the Russian propaganda also. A few days ago, there's been a very interesting bit of news that came out. Apparently, one of the members of the neo-Nazi Russian battalion called Rusich decided it would be a good idea to join the Islamic extremist group of Ahmad. which is an extremist group that's fighting for the Russian terrorist regime. It's very interesting. How are you, my friend? Well, my friend, it's fine for you to have that opinion. However, I would say that this is a rally that doesn't talk about that cause in particular. We speak here about the Russian terrorist regime. If you'd like to participate in that,
Видел, чуть не обосрался.
but my friend, once again, I will deviate a little bit because of the slight interruption. I will deviate to speak about one sort of topic. When you go to a store that sells shoes, you don't ask for them to sell fruit to you. Imagine that situation. You go to a
Толик,
store,
Калининград придется возвращать.
and you tell them, hey, can I get pineapples? I'm very hungry. And they say, I'm sorry, sir. We only sell shoes here. We don't sell fruit. And the man
The guy told that we were
starts
selling
shouting,
arms to
"Oh, I'm
Israel."
hungry. You don't think it's important?
It's not about
You don't think
Israel.
It's important to eat. Well, of course it's important to eat. But it's just a shoe store. They don't have any apples. It's the same here, my friends. We support Ukraine. We oppose Russia. We support those who stand side by side with
Hello.
us. We oppose those who stand side by side with Russia. But we do not have the means or the time to speak about every single injustice in this world. My friends, there are some terrifying things that happen in this world. One of them, for example, just to give an example out of the blue, one of them are the cartels in South America. Has any of you, where are you? Thank you, ladies, thank you. Has any of you ever seen the kind of atrocious acts those people do to other people? They torture them, they cut them to pieces. They do the worst of humanity. Perhaps on the level of the Russian terrorist regime, although that's hard to believe, because the Russian terrorist regime has developed the art of torture to the next level. But my friends, does that mean we don't care about the people who suffer because of the cartels in South America? Of course it doesn't. We wish for the best for those people. We condemn those acts of those criminals who do those inhumane things to them. But we cannot stay here talking about things that are completely and utterly unrelated to our cause. We have a limited time here, you see. Just because we don't speak about something doesn't mean we don't care or are against that. It means we just don't have the time to speak about things that are unrelated to this cause. You know, I've never seen a Ukrainian go to a different rally and start demanding of those people, oh, you need to start supporting us, you know, or else you are complicit in genocide. We never do that. We don't try to browbeat people into supporting us. We invite people to a back and forward discussion, to a deliberation, to a debate, to see how we can reach an end for this war. An end that will last forever, and not until the next time that Russia feels empowered enough to attack.
Дуже багато ботів.
That is what we are here for.
А ти що,
That
пряма
is what we want
трансляція
to
йде?
achieve.
Вони нас чують?
And for those people who come
нас чують?
past us and start shouting slogans of completely
Йобані кацапи
unrelated
чують нас,
causes,
так?
good on
Чують,
you.
чують.
I mean, go right ahead and support your cause. No one's telling that you shouldn't.
А як з тим фріком закінчилось, який тут, ну,
To believe that everyone needs to support you or else they're evil. That's not how we see things.
Ладно.
We even give a chance to people who stand against us. We do. I remember there was actually a lovely couple of people from the Netherlands. I hope things go well for them and their family. But they came here to us with some very uninformed opinions. And I said to myself, I didn't say so to insult, I said so because I could prove it in the moment. And at the end of the day, they walked away and they wished us a nice day, we wished a nice day to them. It was a very productive, I would say, very polite discussion.
І що він говорить?
There was no vandalism, no violence, no cursing, no screaming, no shouting. It was a back and forward discussion. That's exactly what we are looking for here. If people are willing to give us that, well, if people are unwilling to have decorum in the discourse, I'm sorry, but we can't waste our time with people with mental issues who scream and shout and lose their mind in public. And then when they are asked to leave, they start saying, oh, you know, you're a bunch of fascists. Oh, freedom of speech. My friends, shouting fire in a packed theater is not freedom of speech. It's a crime and you go to jail for that. For those who are not aware, it is indeed a crime. Because if you shout fire in a packed theater, there could be a stampede and people could actually die in that situation. It is the truth. It's a law of this country, it's a law in many countries. So freedom of speech does have its limits. Freedom of speech is not some kind of absolute that you slander a person, you lie about them, you cheat. But for some people, like Dr. Carlson, for example, freedom of speech is the shield they use to spread misinformation and to never be accountable for it. I will change subjects a little bit because this is something that's very reminiscent of people like Dr. Carlson, like Andrew Kane, and many of other of these individuals who are against Ukraine and who spread conspiracies and who sell their own snake oil. Which is, by the way, very funny because Andrew Tate has his alias Cobra Tate. And it's very funny that he's one of the biggest snake oil salesmen. It's the guy who calls himself Cobra Tate, sells snake oil. Very convenient. But my friends, cryptocurrency scams is something we've all heard of before. And those people who know, they know that in cryptocurrency, every single time some kind of an influencer scams people, at the end of the day, you know what he says? He says, oh, you know, that wasn't financial advice, I was just voicing my opinion, I was not telling people to do anything. That's a complete utter. It's the same that was done by the likes of Tommy Robbins, where they spread misinformation, where they spread lies to the people of this country, and then watch those same people they lied to go out to the streets, take it to the streets, start destroying public property, start vandalizing buildings, start harassing and attacking people. And then at the end of the day, they said, oh no, it's just freedom of speech, bro. My friends, those individuals are shameless. They complain, oh, you know, how dare the United Kingdom's government put people in jail for tweets and posts. How dare they? Well, my friends, I'm sure it's understandable considering that those same tweets and posts
Гончаренко в Киеве.
people to go down to the street and start destroying things left, right, and center, rioting all over the place. I was disgusted to see those riots happen. I was very ashamed. I was very disgusted. I really wanted to make sure that people learn with those mistakes. Those were not the only riots that happened. That was not the only vandalism. There were other acts of violence, sometimes perpetrated by the far right, sometimes perpetrated by the far left, sometimes perpetrated by religious groups. But my friends, what's interesting about all of that is that moderates never do such riots. Moderates discuss things peacefully, civilized manner. It is the extremists that destroy. It is the extremists that threaten. It is the extremists that practice violence to prove a point. And that is something we can never stand with. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Героям України тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Ворогам України тричі!
Смерть! Смерть! Смерть!
Now my friends, we're going to have another short musical break.
Это слово.
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Нашим славним захисникам і захисницям тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to announce something very important that happened yesterday. The head of the RMC union, Mick announced his retirement. So this is good news for our cause and for Ukraine, because this person was against sending arms to Ukraine. In fact, he demanded his trade union members to not condemn the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And it was one of the very few trade unions organizations that voted not to condemn the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So this is good news for our cause, and it's good news that this person will now have less influence within the trade union movement. So I see this as excellent news for us. But we have a lot of many other people who are against Ukraine. Politicians like Jeremy Corbyn, like George Galloway, like Andrew Tate, for example, which has heard how Andrew Tate has a huge following on social media. I think we have to find ways to how we can counter this, because these people are very popular on social media, and it's very shameful that they spread this, the Russian propaganda and disinformation. And the anti-Ukrainian sentiment on social media, I notice it's grown, and you see people who are against Ukraine, and you look on George Galloway's Twitter profile account, he's always saying, oh well, the Ukrainian Nazis in Ukraine, and what about the agreement that Ukraine never stuck to any of the agreements signed with Russia? But in fact it was Russia that broke all the agreements, it wasn't Ukraine. So, and people do listen to this, and people do share information, and people do agree with this, but we have to find ways to bring about positive news for Ukraine. That we need to people need education, and that's what we lack here. And I think a lot of the trade unions also have a role to play in this, because they have a lot of influence in their schools, in the universities. And they too, some of the trade union leaders are also anti-Ukrainian. They say things that are against Ukraine. And I do have concerns what they teach in the universities, because some of these are pretty left-wing organizations, and they spread information that's not true, and they want their students to believe in what they want their students to believe in. And I think the trade union movement that I'm speaking about, the education union, it is predominantly left-wing, and it's run by some people with communist ideology, and we know most communists on the left support Russia, and they're saying things in the universities that is quite concerning, and I hear about this regularly. So we do have an opposition, and we also have organizations like Stop the War Coalition. They go around and they say, oh, but Ukraine is responsible because NATO expanded on Russian borders. This is not true, and we know that. And there's also another left-wing organization called CND. They are Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament. They are anti-NATO. They don't want Ukraine to be in NATO. But I think Ukraine should be allowed in NATO. It has to be allowed, because it's vital for Ukraine's security, I believe, that NATO is the most important security guarantee in the West, and it's NATO that will guarantee Ukraine's security. So Ukraine must be a member of NATO. It's unlikely to happen soon, but there has to be some kind of an agreement where NATO guarantees security for Ukraine without being an active member. We could maybe positive discussions could come across on this. But I also want to talk to you about the United Nations, because Russia has influence on the United Nations Security Council. And why is it that Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General, went to Russia for the BRICS summit? Now, to me, this is idiotic, the fact that the United Nations Secretary General would go to Kursk to go to Russia, and he went to the UN, to the BRICS summit, and he was UN Secretary General. So the UN has to decide where it starts on this. You can't have your Secretary General going to shake hands with a mass murderer like Putin. This to me is totally irresponsible of the United Nations. So this is what I'm going to finish with, but we have to face up to our opposition wherever they are. On social media, whether it's politicians like Jeremy Corbyn, Diane Abbott, George Galloway, we have to counter-protest this. It's vital that we do, because they have influence, and they are sharing things on social media, and they are turning people against us. People need education, and Migre resigning yesterday as Secretary General is a positive thing. And now we're going to see, hopefully we'll see an end to some of these left-wing trade unionist leaders who are against Ukraine. That's all I'm going to say, but that's all. I'll give the mic.
Thank you very much, Янис. Thank you. Thank you for your good words. You know, always encouraging people to be participating in politics. And now, my friends, I think it's important to mention that Янис here, he does have a limitation, which is cerebral palsy, but he always participates in politics. He's a very active individual. He always goes out of his way to come here. I think that needs to be respected, you know, especially for people who have some kind of a special need. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now, my friends, I'd like to give voice to someone who needs no introduction, to one of the main organizers of our rally, Natалья.
Good evening, Slava Ukraini. It's been a while, but I wanted to say Happy New Year to all of our friends and say a very important thing because you are being so consistent here. Don't be discouraged sometimes that we don't have enough people. What is important on the front line, our Ukrainian heroes, they know about you. They know that you are coming 3 times a week. And even if we can let British people who is passing by remind them even one person about the war another time, it's still a result. So you are doing great thing for our Ukrainian heroes in the front line in terms of supporting. So from Western Ukraine to Eastern Ukraine to Kursk region, they do know that you are standing here to remind about the war. So from all volunteers, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you very much for being so consistent. It's very important. Nothing is changing in Ukraine, unfortunately. Russian terrorists, they are still bombing our peaceful city. The front line are getting closer to peaceful city. The front line are getting closer to Western countries. So we don't need to be fooled that war is going to dissolve or disappear somewhere, or Russians, they will change their mind, or Putin will disappear, or the sick mind of Russians will change. No. They still hate Ukrainians. They still want to kill us just because we are being Ukrainians and we want to live and exist. So basically we are fighting for our existence. And no matter how many of us will be here, even 2 or 3, it's still the result. And even we're gonna probably, after the 24th of February, which is going to be the 3rd anniversary, it's not anniversary, it's commemoration day of full-scale war in Ukraine, probably we're going to come here twice a week, but we still will be coming here and reminding about the war. Because this war, we need to win, we need to stop, we need to save people, and it would be very, very helpful if Western allies, Western partners, they did understand this prior to consequences that we have in Ukraine at the moment. We have a lot of wounded people. We've got a lot of kidnapped people. We have a lot of occupied territories. We have a lot of soldiers that are still in Russian captivity. And this needs to be changing because, yes, they are not tired to defend, but it's wrong. What Russia does, it's a terrorism. What Russia does, they do perform genocide in Ukraine. So again, thank you so much for being strong, for being consistent, and our heroes, they know about you and they know that you are standing for them here. Thank you. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
І нашим самим кращим захисникам тричі. Слава! 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 Я ще скажу пару слів українською. Це для нас, українців. Дуже шкода. Абсолютно дуже шкода, що нас так мало. І не завжди, але нас тут є, скільки, 250-300 тисяч. І насправді трошки соромно перед нашими британськими друзями чи перед кимось іншим з інших країн. Тому що ми могли приходити хоча б по кілька сотень раз у тиждень, і це би зробило велику різницю. А нас раховані люди, але, так як я кажу, не падати духом, тому що хлопці на передовій не падають. І якщо ми зробимо різницю там і зробимо різницю в Україні і переконаємо хоча б одного британця з одного мітингу, це теж результат. Тому не треба сподіватися на якісь масивні результати. Я думаю, що цей рік, 2025, він знову буде важким, але ми, напевно, не зможемо робити більше. Але ми не маємо права робити менше. І якщо ми будемо постійні, якщо ми будемо не опускати руки, значить ми прийдемо до своєї мети. Тому тим, хто ходить на мітинги, знаходить час, ми вам дуже сильно дякуємо, що ми можемо разом у такі важкі часи боротися за нашу Україну і таким самим висловлювати підтримку і повагу нашим військовим на передовій. Дякую. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
А тепер я покличу назад Павла. Павло, he does cover major topics and all the things very, very good. Maybe he is the future politician. We never know.
Thank you, Natalia. You know, you fill me up with hope for my future potential career in politics.
And we will have a short musical
break. Thank you. Yeah.
Apologies for technical difficulties.
No worries, guys. I remind you before the musical break, guys. So our rallies happen here at 10 Downing Street on Wednesdays at 6, on Fridays at 6, and on Sundays at 3. So please come here, show your support. It's unbelievably important that you do. Don't be shy.
Потому что машины были краденые. Вот почему там были номера украинские.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Героям України тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Ворогам України тричі!
Смерть! Смерть! Смерть!
I'd like to thank all the people who spoke today. I'd like to thank also all of you guys once again. Coming here in this cold, it's not easy. We know this. Thank you all for sacrificing some of your own time to come here and help us send this message to the world. It's very important that we do as such. Now, there's an important topic I'd like to speak of, which is yesterday's bombing of Zaporizhzhia. But before we go into that, I'd like to quickly mention a little contradiction. I mean, it's a big contradiction, but comparing it to all the contradictions in the mentality of the Russian terrorist regime, this one is comparatively small. They just simply
Марина,
love
а чё твой не поехал убивать там людей?
lands of other people
Или ты
and
получила за
achievements of
пачку
other
пельменей
people.
за своего?
And the best example of this perpetual appropriation is the city of Kaliningrad. Now, for those who might not know what I'm talking about, nowadays it's known as Kaliningrad. Russians have renamed it, of course. Now, this city, its origins are slightly debated. It reached importance with the Teutonic Order, which was a very important center of the power of that particular order. But it's also important for the Lithuanians and for the Polish. So it is debatable which of those peoples would truly, fully claim ownership of Königsberg. Now, I'm using the German name because, once again, there's a lot of German history, a lot of German architecture in that city. For those who have seen it, you will see that very clearly. It looks more like Germany than like Russia. However, the Russians, their usual classic demeanor, claim, oh no, Kaliningrad это русский город, русский город. It's a Russian city, they say. It's not. There's nothing Russian about it. It was occupied after World War II. And the Russians are still there for whatever reason. Now you know, there is a movement of independent Kaliningrad from Russia. There is. And a few of those actually. But you know what doesn't exist, funnily enough? A movement from Poland or from Lithuania or from Germany to make Kaliningrad part of their country. You know why that is? Because of the Russians who live there. Because Putin has weaponized ethnicity. Because Putin has weaponized language. No one wants to deal with Russians all over the world. You know why? Because no one wants a psychopathic regime invading them a few years after that and saying they're all a bunch of Nazis. No one wants that. No one wants to deal with absolute psychopaths. That is why no one is making claims to Kaliningrad, although it's clearly not Russian land. Does Karelia belong to Russia, the region they wrestled away from Finland? It doesn't. Do the Kuril Islands belong to Russia? The islands that Russia, that the Soviet Union back then has annexed after Imperial Japan had already admitted defeat, had already capitulated. In other words, they gave up, they tapped out. But what does the Soviet Union do? It continues attacking them. Because you see, they thought they had not conquered enough lands from the Japanese yet. So they just simply ignored the capitulation of the Japanese. That's their style. Or perhaps the regions they have annexed from Ukraine, regions where they did these scam referendums that nobody should even wipe their behind with. My friends, it's not Russian land, and that land will leave Russia one day soon, with our help. We will speak about this again, because I would like to have a quick chat, a quick conversation with our Ukrainian speakers here at the rally. about the many Ukraines inside of Russia, many Ukrainian states. It should be Ukrainian, and yet that have been ruled by Russia for a long time. But before that, my friends, we're going to talk about a very sad topic. A very sad topic that honestly makes me very angry. It makes a lot of us very angry, very upset. Yesterday, once again, the Russian terrorist regime, as they always do, has struck civilian targets in Zaporizhia. Just a street in a city. Nothing of military equipment, nothing at all. No relation to the military. They randomly started bombing that street. 13 people died on the spot. Hundreds of people wounded, many of them in a very critical condition. So more people might die. Well, my friends, think about that for a second. This lovely city, this lovely street we're in right now. Imagine out of nothing, with no warning, shells start raining from the sky and kill a whole bunch of people here. And what happens after that? Well, the world will be in an uproar. London was attacked. Dozens of people killed. What is this? However, why is it that when it happens in Ukraine, no one speaks about it? That's all we hear. Nothing. No one mentions it. But my friends, it needs to be mentioned. It needs to be spoken. Ukraine is getting attacked every single day by the Russian terrorist regime. The war is not over. The war is far from over. It may be over soon. Hopefully, Trump sees reason and he puts Putin, the bunker grandpa, where at his place at long last. He puts him in his place. But my friends, before that, the Russian terrorist regime behaves the same way they always do, with genocidal tendencies. This is not the first or the last time, my friends. Today, we have spoken about the prisoners of war that the Russian terrorist regime tortures in the most inhumane ways possible. And it is very important for all of us to remember those people. To remember the Nebesne Sotnia. Remember the prisoners of war, the Azovstal defenders. Remember the civilians. Remember the heroes of Ukraine. Remember everyone who has died. To remember everyone who has suffered. Martyred by the Russian terrorist regime. In the name of all of those people, my friends, I invite you all to do a minute of silence. Thank you. Now, my friends, we don't have that much time left, but there's always a lot to say. Today, I would like to speak with our Ukrainian speakers for a couple of minutes, to send them a personal message from me, one of my personal views on this war, a view that some people may disagree with, but I believe it's an important view to have now, because in this war, in this terrible crime committed against Ukraine by the Russian terrorist regime, our priority must always be victory. That is our main priority. And we need to achieve that victory. We need to think out of the box for that victory. So I would like to say a few words about certain Ukrainian communities in Russia today. Друзі, багато з вас, мабуть, чули за різні українські суспільства у Росії. Я тільки що за це говорив, за малиновий клин, сірий клин, жовтий клин і зелений клин. Це все суспільства, в яких живуть українці. Дуже багато українців. Часто кажучи, що Сибір був побудований на кістках козаків, вибачте. Це правда. Велика частина українців, їх послали всіх в Сибір, в ГУЛАГ, щоб там їх винищити. Але багато з цих людей вижили. Багато з цих людей потім в кінці були русифіковані. Та сама російська пропаганда, яка роки промивала мізки українцям в Україні, мала набагато більше часу і набагато більше влади промити мізки українцям в Росії. У майбутньому, я думаю, нам не можна просто складати руки і забувати за цих людей. Після кінця цієї війни, я дуже сподіваюся, що ця війна перейде в Росію. І цього разу в Росії буде війна за волю тих людей, які там живуть. Найбільша етнічна меншість в Росії – це українці. Це не татари, це не казахи, це не китайці, це не монголи, це українці. І за цих людей нам не можна забувати. Росія почала жахливу ситуацію цим вторгненням в Україну. Це все почала Росія. Але поки Росія має у своїх кордонах людей, які їх слухаються, ніколи нічого не запитуючи, Росія завжди буде готова до нової війни проти України. Нам треба за це ніколи не забувати. Тільки в той момент, коли Росія зсередини почне рушитись, тоді мир в Україні буде гарантований. І я вірю в майбутньому. Можливо, ці райони, в яких живе так багато українців, можливо, в один день вони відділяться від Росії і почнуть себе називати тим, якими вони є, українцями. 100%. Я з вами згоден. Нам треба завжди пам'ятати, друзі, що у Росії у них набагато більше можливості катувати людей, вбивати людей, ганятись за людьми, використовувати людей як скот, як тварин, рівняти їх з лайном, вибачте за слово. Нам треба за це ніколи не забувати. Ми знаємо, що таке Росія. Ми знаємо, що вони роблять з своїми і з чужими ще гірше. Ми це все прекрасно знаємо. Ми знаємо роки русифікації, які проводилися в Україні. Багато людей у цих різних українських краях у Росії, вони навіть себе не бачать українцями. Багато з них навіть не знають, що вони українці. Через русифікацію. Цим людям треба нагадати, хто вони є. І треба, щоб у майбутньому називати себе українцем було модно і було престижно. А не коли я був малий. Я дуже це добре пам'ятаю, коли я жив в Україні. Іноді я приходив у моє місто, в Чернівці. Я жив в селі взагалі. Там більшість людей розмовляли українською. Але коли я приходив в місто, хоч більшість людей в селі розмовляли українською, час від часу показувались такі люди, які казали нам: «О, українська – це як село, треба російською в місті розмовляти». До цього нам повертатись не можна. Нам треба завжди пам'ятати, що російська мова використовується нашим ворогом як зброя проти нас. Але одночасно нам також не можна зневажати тих людей, які допомагають Україні, які воюють за Україну, які жертвують своєю кров'ю і своїм життям заради України, тільки тому, що вони розмовляють російською. Ми не можемо їх зневажати тільки за це. В майбутньому буде мир. Але щоб цього миру досягнути, нам потрібно зробити так, щоб Росія змінилась. Недостатньо звільнити Україну. Треба зробити так, щоб Росія не могла заходити в Україну в майбутньому. І для цього нам треба згадати за українців у Росії.
Хто вам поможе, що треба?
Якщо хтось зі мною не згоден, я завжди радий з людьми трішки поговорити за це. Я думаю, дуже важливо, щоб ми обмінювалися різними думками за цю тему. Це дуже важлива тема. Мені шкода, що за це рідко люди розмовляють в Україні. Я згоден з людьми, які кажуть, що російська мова використовується як зброя, але одночасно, я думаю, людей не можна просто викидати в бік, чисто тому, що вони були русифіковані. Так само, як вони були русифіковані, можна розрусифікувати їх. У Німеччині після Другої світової був процес, який називався денацифікація. Те саме можна зробити у Росії після того, як путінський режим паде. Це буде важко, це не буде легко. Багато поколінь людей були виховані бидлом у Росії. І вони пішли за прикладом, який їм показали московіти. За прикладом бидла. Треба зробити так, щоб у них були нові люди і нові приклади, за якими вони можуть, за чиїми стопами вони можуть ходити. Тому дякую за вашу увагу, друзі. And now we will return to English, my friends. It is important for us to sometimes refer to our Ukrainian speakers here at the rallies, to speak with them a little bit. It also helps me practice doing speeches in Ukrainian. So thanks for listening to me. But if any people would like to ask some questions of us and to participate in our rally, they're always free to do as such. We have had some discussions, some productive discussions, some less productive discussions with people who were passing by us. And I think personally it's very important to make sure that people never pass by us thinking, man, I really disagreed with that guy on that one thing, but I never said anything. That is not a productive way of going on about our lives. If we disagree about something with someone who speaks in public, we should speak out. We should voice our disagreement. Because who knows, maybe that person is preaching something very bad. And if we remain silent, that very bad thing might just win at the end of the day. But in this case, we are preaching a very noble cause to the people who are willing to hear. The noblest of all causes right now, my friends. As Ukraine is the country that has sacrificed the most for world peace. And it is in our power, it is our duty to make sure that those sacrifices, that myriad of sacrifices committed by the Ukrainian people, does never go in vain for the future, for the better future of mankind. And as gratitude to the great people of Ukraine and to all the people who have supported them through these turbulent times. We need to show that gratitude, my friends. So I think it's important to say to this great country who's always supported us and stood by our side, thank you, Britain!
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 Ukraine in NATO!
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 As we mentioned before, my friends, that is the only deterrent against the Russian terrorist regime. And to me personally, it's absolutely hilarious that one of their main points that they make on the international stage with a straight face is, oh, how dare NATO expand. They make it sound like NATO invaded all of those countries and forced them to be part of it. But no country was forced to be part of NATO, not a single one. But Russia can only get countries on its side by forcing them, by making sure that they have no choice in the matter. That is why we all should oppose Russia. That is why Russia cannot be compared to NATO. That is why Russia cannot be compared to the free world. That is why these idiotic statements that, oh, you know, there's corruption in the free world too, they hold no water in this regard. They are meaningless. And I've mentioned this example before, this metaphor. I will end this rally with this metaphor once again, my friends. When somebody, as a child, steals a little bit of candy from another child, sure, technically they can be called a thief. But that is not a serious crime at all. A little bit of a talking to is enough to dissuade them from doing it again. There doesn't need to be a harsh punishment for such action. On the other hand, If somebody is a pickpocket and steals from people all day, every day, lives off that, that is far more serious. That person potentially should go to jail for his crimes. However, that crime is incomparable to someone who cheats and manipulates, who steals from millions and impoverishes millions, who kills hundreds of thousands and who tortures hundreds of people. That, my friends, that is beyond what it means to be a thief. That is a creature that needs to be punished with the harshest punishments known to mankind. That creature, my friends, is Putin. And we cannot compare a petty thief to Putin. We cannot compare the free world to Russia. We must see the difference. And to see that difference, to show that difference to everyone in the world, that is why we come here. And thank you all for being part of our movement. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Героям України тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Ворогам України тричі!
Смерть! Смерть! Смерть!
And now, my friends, we're going to end this rally as we started it with the Ukrainian anthem.
Ще не мирна України, ні слава, ні воля. Ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці, запануєм і ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми козацького.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Героям України тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Ворогам України тричі!
Смерть! Смерть! Смерть!
Дякую.
Дякуємо вам.
Дамир, а чё ты не на фронте? Александр, это вас салют. Путин придет, порядок наведет, и будешь делать так, как скажет Маск и Путин. Звук я выключаю, чтобы потом на песни приходят жалобы. Это не монтаж. Мабуть, ні. Холодно дуже. Холодно. Ну, почитаєш русню?
Давай, та, що я вже тут. Андрій, що він каже, срочно. Что они хочут? У них парни умирают на войне, они каламбур за границей устраивает. Россия — это сила. Митингуйте против своей власти, і війна закінчиться швидко. Ну, дуже дивись, які хитрожопі, блін.
Хитрожопі.
Які хитрожопі люди. Вони головне розуміють, по-перше, що у їхніх інтересах це, щоб ніхто за кордоном не мітингував, щоб
Так.
ніхто не ворушився,
Так.
щоб санкції зняли,
Так.
щоб не давали зброї. Це для
Так.
них найголовніше, вони це знають. А нам дають погані поради навмисно.
Не воюйте.
100%. От чому
Так.
нам вірити людям, які на нас напали, га?
І...
Чому нам вірити цим Букаровим? Чи
Букарів.
що він? Це
Букарів.
бот, блін. Ладно, давай, грайся тут з ботами. Віталік, може щось цікаве один день скажеш. Якщо будуть платити боти сволочі, то
так.
тоді будемо говорити.
Тогда за монету.
А
Так.
поки не йдуть цю фраку.
Все, до побачення.
Папа, тримайся.
Давай. Покажись, тряпка. Это я, а там был Павло. А Павла ты послушаешь, когда перемотаешь на начало. Это где? В Караганде. Сам гнида. От гниды слышу. Вот это где. Если это у тебя нет дома, значит это не у тебя. Так, через 5 минут выключаюсь, потому что холодно и уже я иду в метро. Это Куала-Лумпур. Да, это Куала-Лумпур, Индонезия или Малайзия. Там уже сам смотри. Кто для тебя Бандера? Бандера — это такой актер есть, Антонио Бандера. Потом есть робот в Футураме, робот Бендер. Потом есть Бендер в 12 стульев и Золотой теленок. Вот такой есть еще Бендер. Про какого спрашиваешь? Из-за какого бугра? Мурашки, вот так, мурашки, вы, что же вы не дома, замерз. Ну что, я не дома? Не дома, потому что тебе видео делаю. Лайк поставишь, комментарий напишешь, друзьям покажешь, подпишешься. Ты дебил. А ты кто? Не дебил? Герой. Крыса. От крысы слышу, когда домой собираешься. Ухилянтик. Ну, когда вы покинете мою родину, вот тогда и соберусь. Я вас не звал, так что давай, валяйте. О, мой автобус, кстати. Тогда чуть-чуть больше поболтаем. Раз мой автобус. пожалуйста, гимн России. Гимн России ты будешь петь у себя дома. С Новым годом все будет хорошо. Нет, хорошо уже не будет. Автобус как прозаично. Зато автобус до дома довезет. Завали, пришли, помнишь, маска, ляку, блоки лав, ты ошибся каналом. Благодаря России, украинцы открыли Европу, Америку, живые, не хочу. А вам закрыли все, что могли закрыть. Благодаря твоему президенту. Вот скажи ему спасибо. Все, что было открыто, теперь закрыли. Слава ТЦК. Когда на спецоперацию поедешь? Когда будем ваших гнать до Московской области? Когда на спецоперацию? Слава ТЦК. Спасибо. Молодцы, это Балтийский город, литовцы. Что закрыли? Мы же летаем куда хотим. Нет, вы не летаете куда хотите. Вы едете в Саратов, вы едете в Сочи, вы едете в Тольятти. Вот вы куда едете. Дай бог нас и здесь неплохо кормят. Вот и сиди у себя в Тольятти. Русификация. Дурак, думка, богатей. Почему уехал из Украины? Потому что родители переехали. Почему ехал в Украину? Да ладно, везде не летает. А Бангкок у нас полно русских, украинцев и армян. Ну вот вам в Азию и осталось только летать. А в Польше они Порше, ще мотая им 800 за ребенка, так. Молодец, пан Поляк. Спасибо вам за помощь. Вас, оккупантов, гнать будут. С Курска уже погнали. Калининград никогда не будет. А если дернется, не будет остатка княжества. Раньше передовая планета. Нет, Калининград после развала России будет поделен на 3 части. Часть немцам, часть литовцам, часть полякам. Странно, почему некоторые до сих пор верят, что ЗСУ что-то может противостоять России. Это же нереально, сколько погнали. Курск вы потеряли еще в августе, и 1050 дней вы не можете победить Украину. А когда Прибалтика страна обрела какой царский подарок взял? Ну, странам Балтии уже более 1000 лет. Главное в это верить. Марина, ты подписалась, я надеюсь? Князев, ты вытащи хер из жопы своей, твоего президента. Тогда поговорим. Labas vakaras. Labas. Россия пойдет, может быть, после смерти Путина. Пруссия была, да не стала, а потом немецкая была. Сколько лет потребуется, чтобы вы... Так, куда-то улетело. Сколько лет, чтобы вы забыли все обиды и снова стали братьями. Братьями уже никогда. 100 лет должно пройти. 5 поколений. Что вы на войне, то сбежали. Ага, секунд, если побежал. Антон, а почему ты тоже на войне? Ты с фронта пишешь? Сидит, пиздит, сам сварит, не едет воевать. А ты в Курскую область поехал воевать, Игорек? Вильно, це Россия. Ага, Россия заживет после смерти Путина. Да, заживет. Какой сказочку, вы откуда? Из Магадана. Какой Курск? Не смогли даже Курчатовскую. Курская область вышла из состава России с августа прошлого года. Андрюша, на какую остановку мне выходить? Я тебя тоже жду. Дети СССР, пора домой, американцы с живых не исследуют. Я не против американцев. Американцы самые умные люди в мире. Я недавно тут в Бангкоке выпивал с украинцами, так даже... Что там? Одни одинаково материли Путин, Зеленский, но я даже... Да. А кого ты сам материшь? Да, полыхает у русни, пердак. Сколько лет существует Украина, скажи? Более 1000 лет Украина существует. Термофон даже там. Да. Какие еще места вы можете оставить? За щеку тебе дают твои американцы. Тебе за щеку дают иранцы, Северная Корея и другие. Американцы что-то делают, а я выбираю вдвойне. Дякую. Украина всегда существовала. Американцы самые умные люди в мире. Ты реально настолько туп. Ну, у американцев вообще-то первая экономика в мире. И всем, чем ты пользуешься, это американская. Такой патриот за бугром-то. Почему вы верите в предательство? Павел, а почему патриот России Лиза Пескова во Франции? Так, стрим до 2 часов, и я отключаюсь. Китай первый Какая экономика, дядя? А Россия, наверное, 4-я экономика. Всем, чем пользуюсь, американская. Ну да. Всем, чем... Все, что было изобретено, это, считаю, американское изобретение. Нобелевские премии практически 90% американцев. Русских нет. Здравствуйте. Что вы для себя определяете победой? Победа — это когда русский оккупант покинет украинские земли и больше никогда не нападет ни на каких своих соседей. Липская была только условия. Так, Тарусь, Павло, вот вы. Шутки такие. Марина, а ты своих детей уже учишь по кадыровским учебникам? Какие же вы вообще из своей любимой Америки войны везде происходят, в том числе на Украине. А разве Америка напала на Украину? Рыбалка. Давка, убить история, как. Да, Сережа, ты, наверное, поедешь на фронт. Ты туп как ребенок и не понимаешь глубины сложности мира. Всех вас найдем. Да я могу свой адрес сказать. Алекс, можешь меня искать. Уйтай, хуйня, все товары, Якс, Русь. Чем отделение Крыма и ДНР отличается от отделения Косово? Косово независимая автономная республика, а Крым, ДНР, он присоединился к России. Вот тем и отличается. Ну почему диктор такой невежда? Учись, может когда-нибудь до тебя дойдет. Стал угодником Америки. Наталья, а ты училась по каким кадыровским учебникам, где переписывают историю каждый год? Нет никакой России, никогда не было. Это просто дурной сон человечества. Даже если вдруг Украина станет свободной, то она вернется на родину. Да? Сэр. Знаю, на кого напала Америка. Вот соседи из Вьетнама не дадут соврать. Так и в Вьетнаме и вы тоже воевали. Вы воевали везде, где Америка присутствовала. Вы же тогда выходит, что и вы напали. Русь, ничего не говорит. Русь. Ой, как Россия. Русь переводится с греческого как Россия. Да, вот это вот смешно. Россия, ага, хорошая статистика, как и Вильнюсом. Да. Они на фронте. Александр, а ты сам на фронте? Вот ты сам воюешь с НАТО или тут пишешь? Что за мразь там за кадром? Покажись народу. Хочешь мое увидеть лицо, тебе надо перемотать назад. Приветствую вас из Баварии, моя родина, город Днепр, Украина. Всего доброго. Здорово. Ты сам автор свой покажи. Аватар свой покажи. Без проблем. Тут расходимся, сделаем мой. Не забудь подписаться. Вертайся в мейку, карлик, Бандера, что тебя ушло по. Умные вопросы будут? Я помню, загорать все, продаваться коррупция, хорошо.
А я автобус прошу полировать.
Марина, почему так и не ответил на вопрос? Сам-то был в России? Да, я был в России, и это бедный. Я был в советской Калининградской области. Это бедные регионы, ничем не отличаются. Отключайся. Я был в России, так что у вас есть свои земли, там и работайте. А на чужие земли не стоит нападать. Хрен вам, а не Калининград. Как он комментирует жертвы детей мирного населения Газы. Изучи, забудь. Ну, Газа, каких нету там никакой статистики и не было никогда. Мирных детей в Газе не было, если бы Хамас не напал на Израиль. Америка как раз таки вынудила Россию, заставили Россию, обманули, надули и заставили. Нет, вы не защищаете своих, вы убиваете русскоговорящих в Украине, которые есть такой же вероисповедание, как и вы. Вы убиваете русских, русскоязычных в Украине. Ничем не отличается от Украины, да. Какая чушь, что такое идет? Дмитрий, покинь мой канал. Это ты, бедный идиот. Россия богатая страна. Богатая страна, но газа нет для своих жителей и туалеты на улицах. Вот богатая страна, как выглядит. Тебе что надо от России? От России мне надо, чтобы вы покинули чужие территории. Вот что мне нужно от России. Я хочу, чтобы вы перестали бомбить мою родину и свалили к себе. Где хоть один воин НАТО в Украине? Горите в аду, потомки. Это у них в больном фантазии солдаты НАТО. Эфиру осталось 5 минут. А нам нужно, чтобы вы вышли из Союза. Какого Союза? Союзы все закончились уже. Наташа. Через 5 минут отключаемся. Шалом, русский, ждем вас, когда освободите нас до победы демократии. Как все. Хоть бы загуглил. Зачем? А вот беженцы с Украины ходят. Ага. Скоро будут беженцы с России. Они и так уже есть, но будет больше. Ты это увидишь. Ха-ха-ха. Название трансляции ржу. Наивный. Ну, как оно есть. А США как Гренландию захотела и все остальное. Ну, захотела. Что она ввела войска или начала бомбить кого-то. Это же ваш Трамп. Вы его выбирали. Вот. С ним будете жить 4 года. Будете слушать и делать так, как он захочет. Наивный дурачок, Россию не победить. Побеждали Россию твою уже очень много раз. Очень много раз побеждали. Ты на меня стрелки не приводят. Ты за себя говори. В отличие от тебя я не бегаю по странам ЕС флагом. Нет, так ты же напал на Украину. Вот поэтому такая ситуация и происходит. Какие стрелки? Если бы ты сидел у себя дома, никого не трогал, и люди бы сидели у себя дома, и не было бы 6 миллионов беженцев, тоже будет так слушать, как скажет Америка. Вот и посмотрим, на чьей стороне будет Америка. Ты на свою фамилию смотрел? Хохлоненко Микола. Ты иди на другие каналы. Так, их нет, все братьев надо воспитывать. Ну вот со своих начни. Беги, брат, беги. Все, мы отключаемся. Подписывайтесь. На следующей неделе будут новые стримы. Всем пока.